The PSA Dagger Compact, is it really a better Glock at a much better price? Well, let's find out. Come on. I'm always looking for a good gun at a good price, and I came across the PSA Dagger. I followed some of the reviews on it, and boy, for the price, particularly for this one, I could not argue with it. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time with it unbagging here, but the PSA Dagger came to me in this nice case, suitable for range carry, and of course it's got the owner's manual and all sorts of the usual paraphernalia, lock, whatnot, and the gun itself in what they call flat dark earth, although it looks like light earth to me, not dark. We're going to pull this out and take a look at the gun itself, and oh, by the way, you can carry 2 magazines in here, and in one of the magazine pouches it has a cover plate. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute, and nothing in the other one right now. But the real surprise with this one was not the usual stuff that it comes with, but the fact that it came with not the one magazine that's in. Oh, by the way, this is a PMag, but it came with 9 more, so 10 total magazines plus the gun, threaded barrel, suppressor height sights, and it's kind of showing green there in the camera, but it's really tan. Must be my lighting. All of that for less than $400. Let's bring the camera in a little bit. So I haven't checked the price of a PMag lately. I'm guessing they're probably around at least $20. So that's $200 worth of magazines on a sub $400 gun. So I paid less than $200 for the gun. This is also cut for an RMR. Again, it does have a cover plate on it that you can put on if you don't want to have an optic. I am going to put an optic on it. I have this Gawatar A20 that I had. I did a short look at that. I'll probably post it up here somewhere. Had that on my Canik TP9 SFX, and put a different one on the Canik, and this is going to go on here. So I'm not going to use this cover plate, but it does go on there if you don't want to have that gap. They also make this for a doctor cut, which I believe will also take the Vortex Venom. But the RMR is how I got this, and that's the cut that has a couple of the optics that I'm going to put on it, or at least one. I'm going to try to run a long-term test on it. This is a Gen 3 Glock clone. Glock's Gen 3 is off patent, so a lot of people are cloning the Gen 3. There are a lot of differences, however, not the least of which is price. Again, you can pick up the Bear Dagger for probably $300 or less, under $400 with the 10 PMags, threaded barrel, RMR cut. Good luck trying to find any Glock for that kind of price. A Gen 3 Glock is going to cost you generally a little less than $500. You can occasionally find them for sub $400. A Gen 4 is going to be $500 plus. If you want an MOS, you want something that's already got an optics cut on it, you have to go to a Gen 5. That's going to be $500 plus. Some differences on this, of course. I'm not going to take it apart right now, but let's see on a Glock. In fact, let's bring out a Glock. This is a Gen 4. Some people will say, well, gee, the Glock has the reinforcing pin up here for the action. Well, they did it a little bit different with the Dagger. They don't have it up here. They've got it up here in front. It actually reinforces the whole trigger module in there, which really does help, I think. This does have suppressor height sights. I believe they are Ameriglow, but they're not any kind of a tritium or night sight. They're just all black, which, by the way, I do like. These are supposedly going to one-third lower co-witness with the RMR. And I actually do have a Gen 5 MOS out here also, and there are some differences obviously between the Gen 5 and the Gen 4. We're not going to cover all of those right now, but we are going to look at some comparisons here with the Dagger. The weights are about the same. Bare weight, even without the optics plate, the Dagger comes in at 21.3. The Glock Gen 4 comes in at 21.6. But again, put the optics plate on it, and now you're 21.6, or not the optics plate, but the cover plate on the Dagger, you're 21.6, although you still got a threaded barrel, which you don't have on the Glock. So it's just a hair lighter. Compare it with the Gen 5 MOS. Now this has already got the Vortex Viper. It does have a threaded barrel on it. And when I put the Gawatar on the scale with it also, the Dagger comes in at 22.9 versus the Gen 5 with the Vortex 22.4, so about a half of an ounce difference. Again, not a comparison of the optics, just looking at the different weights when you put them all together. Like the melted barrel on this, the Gen 4 Glock and Gen 3 and before, now I carried a Glock for the final 24 years of my career, so I have nothing against Glocks. I own a whole bunch of them. And you can see there's really not a whole lot in the way of contours. The edges are just rounded. More contouring on the slide on the Dagger than there is on the Glock. They did solve some of that with the Gen 5 by rounding that a little bit more, making it a little bit more carry friendly, if you will. Grip texture, of course, is a whole lot different. Actually, the texture on the Glock, I've got no problem with those, with the stippling type of, oh, actually, it's raised bumps, not really stippling. Good solid gripping on the Glock, and it's it's smoother, almost sandpaper-like, smooth sandpaper-like, you know, maybe 180 grit sandpaper, or even finer on the Dagger. It does have one finger bump, as opposed to the Gen 4 that had a whole bunch of them that people didn't like, and they got rid of that in the Gen 5. And a little bit of contouring to the grip, just a little better feel to the back part of the grip than I get on a Glock. Now with the Glock Gen 5, of course, you can, even the Gen 4, I believe, you can change the back straps on it. They're nothing changeable on this. Again, it's a Gen 3 clone. Also, you notice the mag release is bigger on the Gen 4 and Gen 5. This is it again. Gen 3 clone still has the smaller magazine release, but it's serviceable. It's definitely usable. No problems with it. They all have a single slot rail, as the Gen 5 has. This has forward and rear cocking serrations. They're angled as opposed to straight, and they're a little bit more aggressive. A lot of people complain about the trigger on the PSA because this trigger looks more like a Smith & Wesson trigger. The Smith & Wesson, the original M&P, not the 2.0. Actually, the feel on this, I don't really like the tabs on the Glock. I mean, I shot them so many times for 24 years. I got used to the tab. I just don't like the feel of it. And I do get a little bit of pinching right there at the bottom of the trigger as I release. I shoot so my finger is scraping the trigger guard. To me, it just gives better trigger control. I don't have that issue on the Dagger. This trigger is very, very, oh well, I won't say very nice. I'm a 1911 guy, so it's not as nice as 1911, but I do like the feel of this one. On a 5-pull average, this comes out to 2 pounds 12 ounces on average. The highest pull is about 3 pounds 2 ounces. Some people are going to say my gauge is wrong, but it's calibrated. And I'm pulling right at the bottom. That's where my finger presses. So that's where I put the gauge, right at the bottom of the trigger. That's farther away from the pivot point, so it's going to get a slightly lighter press on it. Definitely do like it. Now, I haven't shot this thing yet. It's going to go out to the range. I'm going to clean it and lube it first. Trees are blowing. Did actually a several-part series on his PSA Dagger. Had some problems until he thoroughly cleaned it and lubed it, so that's what I'm going to do before we take it out to the range. And when it goes out to the range, it will wear an optic just to see how it works with that. I've also heard complaints that it doesn't fit standard holsters. It doesn't in many cases. What will normally fit my Gen 4 Glock without an optic, or even my Gen 5 with, doesn't always fit, particularly polymer holsters. Just mainly the shape of the trigger guard, I think, and also the shape of the frame. There's a little different contour right here. In fact, when I grip it right, my finger pushes right there on that depressed area, and my trigger finger will ride just a little bit above it here. Don't have that same kind of indentation on the Glock. It's just a wider piece of plastic in through there. But that may have something to do with how it hangs up. The only holster I've got that I found that fits it is this old Galco that, by the way, I carried when I was working plain clothes for a long time. So this holster has certainly been around the block, but it does fit it. Now, obviously, got to be careful how I draw it so that the sight doesn't hang up, but I haven't had any problems with it so far. All right, PSA Dagger, a budget Glock. And again, the Glock has been notoriously reliable, at least for me, and I certainly staked my life on it for 24 years. Is this going to work just as well? It's certainly a whole lot less expensive. We're going to take it out to the range, and I will report back. Quick look at the PSA Dagger Compact, a sub $400 Glock with 10 PMags. By the way, it does take regular Glock mags also. And let's see how it works. So thanks for stopping in while we took a look at the PSA Dagger.